AM 970 WSTX.
It's a very, very important and wonderful opportunity for us to talk about Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands and the things that they have been doing in the community. You know, there are a lot of things that happen in the background, and very often you don't see the workings of it in terms of a horn being blown, but in terms of qualitatively affecting people's lives, it's making a big difference. And to me, and for me, Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands is one of those organizations that's here doing great things, and their business is about getting the business done, not necessarily blowing their own horn. But I sent out a court order to never cease and desist during this show, to blow horn as necessary and appropriate, because we want the community to know and appreciate a lot of what you do. Well, first off, Amelia, are you hearing me now?
I hear you now.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, great. Okay, well, I want you to go ahead and take the lead here and tell us about the Disability Rights Center, the VI, and other partners, and whatever history you want to give in that regards to correlating that with the ADA. So I'm going to turn it over to you folks to educate me.
Okay.
Well, I know a little bit, but I just want you to know that's the way I'm looking at it. Okay, I'm not here to lead. Yes,
I appreciate that.
All
well,
right.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for inviting us to give us this opportunity to present what we are and who we are and what we try to do. And I appreciate your point that we are more interested in getting the job done than patting ourselves on the back, because we all will benefit, I think, ultimately from having equal rights to access to buildings, services, that type of thing. Anyway, the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands got its start back in 1977. It was first called the Committee on Advocacy for the Developmentally Disabled. We are what's referred to as the Protection and Advocacy entity for the U.S. Virgin Islands. As a result of an act of Congress back in 1976, I believe, there was what's referred to as a protection and advocacy system. And that's what the Disability Rights Center is, part of the protection and advocacy system. We are one of 57 such entities around the United States and its territories. So we have, we first started focusing on persons with developmental disabilities. And by that, I mean persons whose disability had its onset before you became 22 years of age. Then it expanded to persons with mental illness. Then it expanded to clients who need assistance in getting work, supports, rehabilitation services. Then it expanded to persons who didn't fit those two categories, but required individual rights representation. So over the years, we evolved to other issues having to do with voting rights and persons with traumatic brain injury. So we get little grants, and we try and cobble those all together into one big pie in which we work and try and focus on certain issues. Every year, part of what we do is try and collect information from the community as to what should be our priorities. And every year, number one is access to appropriate health and mental health care. After that, typically it's give me information so that I can represent myself, so I can learn about my rights. I want to know more so that I can be more engaged, a better self-advocate in the community. And third, and sometimes second, is appropriate access to education. So those are the three things, and that's not to dismiss the other issues, but that has been set as a priority for us by the citizens of the Virgin Islands. So that's pretty much what we are in a nutshell.
All right, good thing. And we have, go ahead.
Shammi Carr.
Yeah,
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Virgin Islands. My name is Shammi Carr. I'm an advocate working at the Disability Rights Center. And it's just been a privilege and fun, really, to really do the best we can to talk about the ADA. This has been obviously very, very trying. When we look to celebrate the Americans with Disabilities Act 30th anniversary, we really wanted to go gangbuster, highlight the accessible beaches that were being worked on. We wanted to do things in person to really celebrate this in a community fashion. But of course, with the pandemic, we had to really curb a lot of that. And so that's why we appreciate such things as the radio show, to be able to still get the message out in the celebration and the programming. But we've done other things that, and I could talk about, that really try to engage the community throughout the month of July, not just July 26th when the ADA was enacted and signed. So this is a kind of a compilation of, different venues, different formats, different modalities, different social media, to really get the Virgin Islands engaged and excited about the Americans with Disabilities Act, even when it's a very trying time to get people engaged. So we, again, thank you very much for having us on the show and to be able to continue to talk about this.
All right. Well, I shouldn't start off with, in our community, we have all these different challenges that go on. And from time to time, this is great that you're on here, because as soon as you get folks' attention, something else happens that kind of takes their attention away. And over the years, we've had some of the more simple struggles of, I call it simple in one sense, but it's very important, of access issues here in the Virgin Islands, for instance. And that's an ongoing struggle, whether it's from sidewalks to WAPA and it's two doors that when one open, it can't afford a wheelchair to come through. And they just need to put an automatic opening door on the place. I mean, it's part of investing in your community. So that's kind of one of the more kind of obvious everyday things that not only might be in your face if you notice it, but for those people who are advocates that you hear about on the talk show. And I commend the persons with disabilities who are being vocal in the community, because if you're quiet, the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease in that sense. And when I see disability rights, I see kind of like the big stick, and they say walk quietly and carry the big stick. So it's like, sometimes I tell folks, I know you have to be careful now, because they go around and say, I'm going to report you to disability rights. I said, no, well, you got to go about it the right way and make sure you have all your information together and document, okay? And in that sense. And Ms. LaMont, about several months ago, and probably before COVID, I gave you a copy of a document that we were, friends of mine. My disability is running my mouth, so I qualify. So friends of mine, we got together, and there's been a lack of responsiveness, let's say, from Public Works on VITRAN Plus. So we see, even though we're at a milestone of 30 years, there's still work to be done. And in that context, I'll just say that you have partners in the community who are also trying to assist and do their part to get the work done. Okay. One of the questions that is in the back of my mind is, over the years, if you had to point out one or two vexing situations that got you involved in terms of disability rights and things that are happening in the Virgin Islands, are there any particular ones that stand out to you that were really vexing in terms of like, hey, persons with disabilities are people too, and why are you fighting us so hard on this? Just go ahead and do what the law says you should do. Do you have any particular incidents that you found particularly vexing that really got your ire up and made you that much more resolved to take them on?
Well, I can name a few things, and I know Shammi will chime in with some others, because Shammi has worked here before with the University Center for Excellence on Developmental Disabilities, so she does have that experience. One of the vexing problems I find, and again, this is in response to a community setting that bar, is our inability to provide appropriate services for persons who have mental illness. We filed a lawsuit back in 2003, was able to marshal through a study that had buy-in from the various departments and from psychologists and such, produced a plan, a 5-year strategic plan to improve our mental health service system. It was essentially what was created was a one-stop shop. Okay, so no matter where a person who was in need of services or assistance, no matter where they came in, you know, it was known to the circle that here is a person who's had an interface with, say, the police department, but needs services from the hospital or from a social worker. The plan has not yet been implemented, and this was a plan that was prepared in 2014, approved by the district court, and this is 2020, and we still are, you know, in dire straits with respect to mental health services. So that's been a really vexing problem to us. I mean, we're a very small organization, and our resources are very, very limited. So I have to really think long and hard about making that kind of decision to invest, because it is an investment of our staff's resources, and by that money, time, everything else. And we still have yet to, you know, make that break. So we keep chipping away, but that has been a really vexing problem, I think, for us as citizens in the territory. COVID has presented, I think, more challenges to everyone's psyche. And if ever there is a time for that kind of support, it's now. So that's my vexing problem. Shammi, I'm sure you can chime in, you know, with something in that regard.
Archie? Okay, wonderful. So,
Morning.
Hey, Archie.
Morning. We have Archie Jennings on with us.
Okay.
So after Fami is done, we'll come to you in introduction and chime in.
So as Amelia was saying, there's been issues certainly with mental health services. That's nationally, that has been a prevalent issue, unfortunately, because, you know, when we talk about mental health issues, people automatically jump to stereotypes or knee-jerk reactions. I work a lot with employment and disability, and when an employer hears about mental health, the first thing is we don't want to have those people in there. We are afraid of them. What if something happens and then becomes a liability issue? These are all misnomers. These are all stereotypes that we, like Amelia said, we try to chip away, even at the whole like perception of disability, whether it's obvious or not obvious. And so I work a lot with employers, and I can tell you that sometimes through no fault of their own, you know, they're not medical doctors. They're not there to try to certainly do any diagnosing, but the fact is they kind of hold the bag when it comes to reasonable accommodation. So people with disabilities have to really understand not only their own disability and how it affects them at work, but they're also walking into sometimes a loaded situation where they say, I know if I disclose I have bipolar, that might not work so well for me. How can I disclose in a better way? So a lot of times we at Disability Rights Center will work with individuals with disabilities just to talk about how to have that fair chance in the workplace. So definitely employment and disability has been a big one. Another one certainly is the access to education, as Amelia mentioned, particularly special education. You know, it's census right now, so it's so crucial that people absolutely fill out the census, because some of that is related to funding when it goes to the schools. And we know that special education continues to be a struggle. It was a struggle before the COVID. It continues to be a struggle during COVID. And the reality is that these are children who have absolutely the same equal rights to be or participate in a school program as students without disabilities. So that whole having equal access continues to be an issue, not only certainly in the Virgin Islands, but throughout the country, because of the fact that sometimes, again, like in the field of disability, it's kind of an afterthought. And so we continue to work on that, kind of that misperception, but also that challenge of making sure that we are on the front and center with all these issues, as we are with so many other populations who also get disenfranchised.
All right. Attorney Jennings.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Great, fantastic, outstanding. I've got you here with us.
Okay, I like your hat.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And so just go ahead and give a quick introduction. You know, you're so family that you would just come in and start talking. But I'd like you to introduce yourself to the people of the Virgin Islands, in the sense you've done a lot of work here with Disabilities Rights Center as a partner, and just as a community member. And I just would like you to take the time and just give a little bit more than just jump in.
Okay, no problem. At present, I'm the Director of Advocacy for the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. And I'm sure Amelia introduced the general public to that agency and what we work as part of a network of legal service providers, and probably the single most, the largest one that provides services to a cross-disability program. It's not aimed at one disability, but it crosses over all disabilities. And I always viewed it more of a civil rights issue. And therefore, a lot of the format and approaches I have taken over the years has been on the basis of human rights and civil rights. Even when I did employment cases, I really put it in the context of a person's individual and civil rights in a democratic society. So it's a carryover from my employment work for years as to applying the same approach with the disability community. And essentially, one part was removing segregation, more integrative approach. Another aspect is in maintaining the individual's rights under the Constitution and laws of the United States, as well as push forward some affirmative action issues with regard to employment of persons with disabilities. And Shammi was very correct when she says there's a stigma attached to persons who come for work or get employed either with a disability or they obtain a disability while employed. And that's one of the larger issues that we really don't approach, or persons are cut off from employment due to becoming ill. Cancer or some long-term illness may separate that person from their employment. So these are some outstanding issues that still are prevalent within society. And we have to give ADA, American with Disabilities Act, a congratulations for a lot of things that within our own environment has changed and is still in the progress of being changed. Right now, even before the legislature, they're talking about a community walkability statute to make the sidewalks and the community more accessible to all in regard to movement and within the Virgin Islands. So it's a great program. Thank ADA for all that it's done. Even I think when I was ill, I appreciated all those ramps that I had to go through without steps, the elevators, the placement of certain removal of barriers is clearly seen when you travel throughout the United States.
Well, I back in 2016, I went to Denmark, and when you walk down through Christiansted and you go from store to store, sometimes you actually go from level to level, and it's really inhospitable to someone, let's say in a wheelchair, or dangerous for someone who's walking with a cane. And we went downtown in Copenhagen, and there were the same types of walkways and different levels and ramps. So, if they can do it, they built it here. Well, exactly. How to build it. They can do it, we can do it also. So sometimes it's just a matter of putting it in their face that, hey, it's not what you make it out to be. And if you really have the will, we can do it. And some of the things that you talked about there, a lot of people somehow in their mind think that we kind of like gotten past that. And it's for them because a lot of them don't live it. If you have to live it, or you have to work with people and serve people who live it, it's a little bit different situation, because then you see it. But we still obviously have challenges and lots of ways to go. But I'll just say that, and I know a few people in the community to say that you have allies in the community of those with disabilities, their families and friends. So,
Okay.
all right. Now,
Good to hear. I would like to see, and this is just my personal challenge to the community, I don't see that many young people as allies. And there's a lot of movement now with respect to social justice, Black Lives Matter. I mean, that certainly resonates with a lot of us, obviously. I don't see much in the way, and that's another vexing problem, Douglas.
well,
Where are the youth?
I think we have an opportunity, though. I see it as an opportunity, and in the same way that you had the protests on the Frederiksted Wharf and at WAPA, I think that if we bring more information to these youthful organizations, to partner with them, and I'll tell you a sad experience that I had. One of my friends who will modestly tell you that he's visually impaired, and I tell him, no, you're blind. That's my good friend Jared, okay? And love him to death. We have our ongoing issues with Vichan Plus that he isn't here today as my co-host and everything else, right? But we were trying to get him to a school to introduce him to students and to have a conversation because, children are more receptive and open to learning with a level playing field.
Absolutely.
And the teacher was the obstacle.
Wow.
The yes, but somehow it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm saying that the problem general to me is more our adult stigma infested folks who sometimes are at the portals of progress, who close the doors. So I feel that now that we have these youthful organizations that are out here protesting and being active in the community, it's an opportunity. So Jared and I will have to redouble our efforts and see what we can do in terms of making contact with those folks. I have someone calling here. Let me see who that is. WSTX Reflections.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Jared Evelyn Sr. I guess you heard me talking your name.
Yeah, Carr, my name. Come out and please tell me.
Okay, all right.
Good morning to the staff of Disability Rights.
Morning.
Okay. You hearing him okay?
Yes.
Okay, good thing, good thing. All right. So
I heard a gentleman speak about civil rights. And I just wanted to say that, we have a company here that is springing on the disability right and the civil rights of the disabled community here since March of 2020, March 23rd, when they denied the riders of Vichan to get on the paratransit bus to go to the store and to conduct their business. I spoke to Washington, the Civil Rights Division for the Transportation, and they sent me the COVID-19 rules and regulations, which speak to the fact that Vichan is infringing on our civil rights. But the more you speak about it here, nobody does anything. Why is that?
well,
I can sort of address it. It's more of a capacity issue than a civil rights issue, because one of the issues with the public or mass transportation here in the Virgins, a little different in St. Thomas than St. Croix, is the availability of enough transport vehicles to serve the general public. So with the social distancing mandates in place, it caused, you don't have very large buses, you don't have a lot of buses, and it sort of pushed back on the system to reduce the services because one group of citizens needed medical transportation on a daily basis. And that sort of sucked the whole availability of transportation for the entire system. We are unfortunately have a large population of persons that need dialysis. And so for health reasons, a lot of the services were dedicated to providing them daily transportation for the medical needs. And that's hard when you have one community and you got to choose, who gets those services. And that's one thing that COVID-19 is really bringing out. They got the same issue with the ventilators. Who gets the use of a ventilator versus if there's not enough to go around?
That's not the intended purpose of the bus.
Well, your approach may be right, but it becomes a political decision at that point. Who makes those decisions within the mass transportation is a governmental and could be affected by going to the Senate, making some of those things available.
It was just made arbitrarily.
Right. Well, let me interject here if you don't mind, Jared. It would be helpful if Public Works, which is the overseeing government entity for Vitran Plus, it would be helpful if they had reports that they create based on ridership and availability and could demonstrate to the public as well as their clientele as to what their capacity is and how they're making these decisions. So it as Jared was pointing out, it's arbitrary to him because one day you wake up and they say this is what we're doing, and you don't really have something to bounce off of and or to give it a relative value in terms of to buy into it as opposed to reject it. And I give you one example. For instance, dialysis, they make a run up here into the Gallows Bay area, the kidney center. And, so you've got a big bus with 2 or 3 people on the bus. And capacity in that situation is not an issue. And they look at these things and they have to wonder, well, how does this carry over? Because clearly it is not a capacity issue. Now, across the board, they may be able to show, but we might also be able to see that through creative management techniques, that they would be able to do a better job to more broadly reach the needs, solve the needs of the persons with disabilities who are, in essence, kicked off the bus, as they would. And I think that's where the challenge is right now, to get them to do their job, to figure out how they can make the resources that they have work better. And I say that now, I'm going to throw a rock stone here, but me and Kay, okay? We wrote to the Department of Public Works, and a copy of that went to Vitran. And I say Jared was the one at the front, so if somebody had thrown a box, he was going to take the blow, not me, right? Right, Jared? Anyhow, we never got a response. We never got an acknowledgement.
Wow.
This was before COVID.
And
Right.
yeah, and that's before COVID. And so and you'll be getting a copy of the documents. We have written them back again, and this time, first it was cordial. We go and we hand deliver. This time it's return receipt requested, because now you have gotten it and we can document that you got it, which we know they got it before. This is why we dropped it off at both the office.
I have it.
And yes, okay.
It's on my desk.
Right. And
Well done, by the way.
That voice I hear, is that Attorney Jennings?
yes, he's on the panel. But what I was saying is that we're making a good faith effort to interact with and in a helpful way, because one of the things that they did long before COVID is they unilaterally disbanded the means of input from the clientele and users into the Vitran Plus operation. And, you know, it's at this point to me, it's clear that they don't want to be bothered with doing that. And that is part of the mandate of their job, the regulations, what they say they have to do. And if they were trying to do it and all persons with disabilities just refused to participate, didn't want to have anything to do with it, just give me a ride, and that's all I want, fine. But you have people who, as clients, have the interest and the desire to be involved. And we're running into a situation where we reach out in good faith and we get slapped up.
Well, you know, this is where numbers come into play.
We depend on. Attorney Jennings, I don't know if you know, I am visually impaired, or as did I say, I blind. Okay, and over the years, I have had to deal with a bit of hostility when dealing with Vitran, and this is not since COVID. This is way before COVID. I've been driving on this bus for more than 7 years now. And every day is a different challenge, a different issue. Okay? And, you know, when it comes to persons with disabilities, dealing with that bus, they always treat us different to those people with dialysis. That bus wasn't put there for dialysis patients, I'm sorry to say this. It was put there for disabled and seniors. Okay? That's what the bus is for. The bus is not an ambulance service. So something needs to be done about it, because every day you go on that bus, it's an issue. They leave you stranded because of dialysis patients. This ain't just now because of COVID. It's an ongoing situation.
Well, you're right. You're right, Mr. Evelyn. There was a community report put out in 2010. They had an outside consultant come down, go over the entire system. And part of that report was the greater demand and lack of capacity for Vitran even at that time. The report did result in the bus and getting more Vitran Plus type of buses in 2014. But this is really where the community democratically has to step up and say, we want some response. There could be another town hall, call for a town hall meeting for people to come out and show what political will you have to put people in office that are going to make sure that Vitran and Vitran Plus have the funds, adequate funds, to run an operation. I guess it was Easter Seals, Amelia, you got to remind me, who nationally gave support for that community transportation report. And they are there to help situations such as this. But you're right, Mr. Evelyn, it was long before COVID-19. COVID-19 just exposed the difficulties or some of the missing gaps in the services once they had to do social distancing.
Yes. Well, Jared, I'd just like to say something here real quick that you alluded to. There's certain things that aren't funding and equipment related per se, as opposed to how you run the department. And if I had to make a public recommendation right now, you know, when you hear about police, they always talk about training. Well, when you say Vitran Plus, you need training. Sensitivity training, in the sense that sometimes the interaction, and this I think is not just limited to them, it's a community issue, just like you have stigma and other things, is that somehow they're not making the connection of who they serve is the job. The job is, I get paid every 2 weeks and you know, I don't have time for these people harassing me. And that's not the job.
Right.
The job is those people and how you can impact their quality of life through the services that
No,
that
no,
you go ahead,
that's
Gerard.
what you have. But
Mhm.
they don't say those people. They say them people there. That's what they refer to as. Right over the radio. They did that.
Yes, there was who was on that talk show?
The governor.
The governor was on that talk show.
Yes.
Yes, and an employee called in, quite irate. It seems that these persons with disabilities would call in and speak to their governor about them. And I put it that way, just to emphasize the fact that it's about service. It's about service. And somehow or the other, you have to get past your entitlement to a job to realize that the job entails service. Okay? So I just want to say that rather than to belabor this aspect of the discussion at this particular time, that we will be sharing with you the new correspondence. There's some formal complaints that are being filed that hopefully will put some heat under the pot and get things boiling a little bit, and maybe we'll see some responses that are going to be positive toward the needs of the persons who are crying out. But we...
Okay, I want to make one last statement and then I can hang up and listen.
Okay.
On a normal day, Tuesday and Thursday, I would be sitting next to you guys right now in the studio, interviewing you as well. But since this COVID-19 business, I was not able to come up to the studio to do anything because Trent refused to drop people to work.
Okay.
So,
but Gerard,
I mean,
Gerard, I don't think you say that emphatically enough, in the sense that there's a little bit more detail to it than that. The big dialysis bus that makes the trip up here 3/4 empty is the bus that would bring you up. Okay.
Oh, well, if you see the 3/4 empty, well, I don't know who, when they reach there, they don't drop out other people's.
Well, I understand.
I'm just saying, but
I understand.
It's just the fact that, even there was a lady that lives right here in Frederickstead, and she works in Frederickstead. She have one foot, and it's telling her to find a way to walk.
And
they refuse,
again,
and this is why I brought up the fact that the Vitram Plus bus is not an ambulance service. Okay? It is for persons with disabilities. And I'll say this and then I can. There's a few people since I've been on this, since driving on that bus, a few dialysis patients have died on that bus, either going to or coming from dialysis. This is a serious problem. They need to have an ambulance service take these people where they need to go, because those people are in a delicate situation. That bus is not for them.
Okay. And I will cap that off before you leave to say that the employee that they told to find a way to work somehow was an essential employee. Okay, an essential employee with an organization that's directly linked to the VI government. And in that context, you would have thought that they would at least somehow fit them in. All right, and I'm saying that for emphasis because Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands is here with us today, and some of this is refreshing for them, but they're the ally, and in that sense, and I want to in that sense put this all under the umbrella that 30 years ADA in the Virgin Islands, and it's been a struggle. We've got work to do, and we're committed to carrying on into the future.
We have a lot of work to do because in the 30 years, the Virgin Islands have done almost nothing to serve the disabled community.
Well, we have those who would beg to differ, But
I
Gerard,
said almost nothing.
Okay.
Almost nothing.
I appreciate your thoughts, though. I mean, I really do.
I remember I'm an individual with disability, and I live it every day. And to see the dysfunctional society within I live in with a disability is disheartening. Okay?
all right.
Okay.
I appreciate your call and your input, Gerard. Okay.
Excuse me?
I say I appreciate your call and your input.
Okay.
All right. We all do. I'm just saying that, me personal. Okay. All right. Thank you again.
Well, just got to remind him, he's preaching to the choir. What we got to do is reach out to those who can affect change.
Right.
Being the Senate, there's an election coming up.
No, Gerald, let's say we gone into phase 2. We realized we had things that didn't happen in phase 1, so we move it into phase 2. And we becoming more aggressive, okay, in that sense. So one of the first things we gotta do is make sure we get the copies of the documents that you file up to this point to all of them so that we can keep them abreast in that sense. And as our allies in this struggle, that hopefully the progress can come faster.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, thanks again.
Take care.
All right, take care.
Yeah, have a great day.
You do the same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 30 years, ADA, the struggle goes on. I mean, you have Gerard, you have Amara, you have a couple other folks who I won't call names to protect the innocent, you know, and there is concern in the community, and one of the challenges that I found, which I really like having Gerard here as a co-host, is that they need a voice in that sense, and that's why I was particularly irate about the fact that with all that's going on with COVID, that they would so quickly shut down the opportunity for them to have a voice through the media, which the governor himself said is so important to the response to COVID in and of itself and everything else. That's not a slight, that's just the reality. Sometimes institutions do things that go against the very cause that they're supposed to support. And in that sense, folks like us are here to kind of say, hey folks, what are we here for again? What are we supposed to be doing? And what's our goal? And yeah, I know it's rough, but we have to figure out and re-engineer how we're going to do it. All right. Good thing.
Right. But it's good. I mean, you're bringing out one of the essential aspects. We are a legal association, for one, that we press those legal issues. But as advocates, we try to more or less bring those organizations together that have a common goal. Just like we're talking about Mr. Evelyn making a complaint, those kind of complaints, along with the voice of maybe AARP, which is a larger organization, but affects the a constituency that's the same. You got Mr. Evelyn's voice plus AARP, plus maybe a couple other, the Center for Independent Living, you know, the DD Council, bringing all those people together to face off with the decision makers is where the spirit should be at this point. You got an election coming up. Every candidate should be challenged on some of the things that Mr. Evelyn had brought up. Every candidate should be challenged about making the towns accessible, like you said that you saw in Denver. It can be done. It's done in other jurisdictions, but that interest, that demand should come from the people. They should, and that's where, you know, organizing comes into play and advocacy comes into play.
You know, and that's an interesting challenge. And when you talk about organizing, and the thing is, Gerard is my computer consultant, my technology consultant. He can show me things to do with the iPhone that sighted me can't even begin to think of, much less to see, you know. And in that sense, and I see a real opportunity through technology, and COVID, as bad as it is, has been the blessing to say that, well, we have this tool and we have to make better use of it here. And we have a few who are at that point where things now like Zoom and the other networking tools are out there, so that we're not limited anymore to necessarily having to have Vitam Plus get us to a location to meet to discuss things of interest.
Right.
And so I've kind of, in a sense, partnered with Jared to move that along, because as you said, it has to be community, but at the same time too, somebody's got to let the community know what you need. And that somebody comes back to us, meaning the community that has the need and has the concern. Okay? The governor can't read people's mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there was a report prepared a few years back by the Community Transportation Association of America, which gave the government of the Virgin Islands a template as to how to improve the public transportation system. So again, here's a document, a how-to document that tells us how we can do this effectively. So, you know, you put the script in the hands of the, you know, the decision makers. So, you know, it's up to advocates to say, look, here it is. We need now the will to do it. Simple as that.
And you have to make sure, and I'm saying you, meaning my friends, persons with disabilities, have to make sure that these things get picked up and dusted off and reminded of, because while at WAPA, I was the HR person assigned to the evaluation of the facilities in terms of ADA access. And we found certain things then, and that's going back a couple, you know, almost 6 years now, that they knew that they have a bathroom that if a person in a wheelchair couldn't get in, much less than if you had a smaller transportation device, like maybe a scooter, that if you got in, you were stuck in there, literally. And so now comes along COVID, so you don't have access to inside and the bathroom. So the problem in their mind isn't like deferred, it doesn't exist anymore. Like one of these days, they're not gonna have a lobby and people in it, right? The doors that I alluded to are less than the 30 or 33 inches necessary for a wheelchair to go through. So they obviously need a different type of door mechanism. So that's 6 years ago. 6 years ago, they couldn't come up with enough money to change the doors, okay? You have the cashier inside where if you're in a wheelchair, you gotta stretch yourself up to get to where the money goes through to talk to somebody, as opposed to, let's say, what they have at the Department of Finance, the IRB cashiers there, which are, you could roll up in a wheelchair, it's amplified in such a way that you could talk to the person. So we have examples in our own community of how we can change certain things. Yes, it's an investment. It costs money, but it's an investment in your people. And that's the way we have to look at it. So in the case of WAPA now, a report was done and all these things were outlined, and the person leading at the front of that, a young lady, and kept going back and checking, and then this was the person in charge of that project, and then the person changed, and the person changed, the person. It's just kind of like a wear down tactic, because I know personally that the will to do what is necessary to be done is not going to be exercised based on it's the right thing to do and so we should do it. It's got to be, like you said, you have these plans, and then we in the community have to brush them off and remind them, and if necessary, make the right complaints. So then the federal inquiries start happening, and there's a legal incentive all of a sudden. Anyhow, see my disability? I tell you, my disability is running my mouth. This is your show. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I'm laughing because your use of the words wear down tactic, that's certainly something that Archie and I have been experienced for many, many years. That's why when I said to you earlier that we have to think long and hard about what resources we will devote to a particular topic, it's because I am very much aware that that has been regrettably the process. Wear you down. Changing staff. But if we hold true to what, you know, what we gotten as results of our advocacy internally, then you're right. We can blow off the dust and keep on, fighting. What I would like to ask Douglas if Shammi could share with us the activities that has been done to commemorate 30 years of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Shammi has been phenomenal she's been the force behind getting a lot of the programming done. And if she has a little opportunity to do that, I'd appreciate it.
And just in between her starting, please send me email or something with the list of all the activities so I can help this station to further amplify what's going on in recognition of 30 years of ADA in the Virgin Islands and the work that's been done and the work still to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can send you the link. So as Amelia mentioned, we, instead of just focusing on July 26th, we really took the whole month to celebrate and get the community engaged. So I wanted to give you some examples. We started partnering with WTJX in terms of some shows and movie screening. And so WTJX has curated many disability-related shows, as well as premiered 2 disability movies that we wanted to share with the Virgin Islands. One is called Including Samuel, about a young boy going through special education. And another one is called Intelligent Lives. And this is a great, Amelia just mentioned we're the young people. This is a great movie that really focuses on young people going to college, young people going into the workforce, and these are young people with disabilities. So it's a great movie. It's a feel-good movie, but it's also a really change agent, because I think as people start to watch programming that really focuses on advancements and inclusion and acceptance of people with disability, the better our chances of really reaching our ultimate goal. So the WTJX programming has been wonderful. They have put us on the front cover, the Intelligent Lives, for their July monthly magazine to celebrate the ADA. So we really appreciate all of their partnering. We're also working with the Small Business Development Center as well as the Economic Development Authority. We partnered up with 2 programmings with them. One we just had on accessible social media, and that is archived, and you can review that. And that was last Wednesday. We have another one coming up next Thursday for 2 hours. It's on employment and disability policies. So through this conversation, we were talking about people who might be returning to work with a disability, or maybe they don't know what their rights are in the workplace. This program is to help employers really have that infrastructure of knowing how to serve and accommodate employees with disabilities. And we can, just like Amelia mentioned, you got kind of a blueprint. This is kind of a blueprint for employers that they can definitely jump off of. So that will be next Thursday from 10 to 12. We're also doing a commemorative booklet. This was something that we kind of went back and forth because, we want to, save paper, but at the same time, we are, our center is really focused on resources and information. So one of the things we thought would be a great contribution was to do a commemorative booklet. Not only does it have a lot of positive, welcoming remarks, from commissioners, the governor, and so forth, but it also has a lot of information. And that's something, again, we pride ourselves on. So the commemorative booklet will be available come July 26th. It will be posted on our website. We will have some hard copies if people don't have access to a computer, but this is something, again, that we can, help people navigate. For example, who are the ADA coordinators in the government? That's what the booklet has. So it's very informational as well. We're doing obviously a lot of radio shows, not only on this one, but we have our own program called Ability Radios. And we've done, now it'll be the 3rd week this Saturday, to focus on different topics related to disability. And one of the things that we did last Friday is we did our videotaping of the ADA celebration. As I mentioned in the beginning, we wanted so much to be able to really engage the community, do things in person, obviously not an option with the pandemic. So we decided to do a 30-minute video to air that will be aired on July 26th on various stations at various times, to really let the community know that we are still celebrating the ADA, we are acknowledging it, and we did a proclamation, as well as the governor is making remarks for that program. So that's something that'll be aired come July 26th, again, which is the official marking of the ADA. And the last thing I want to mention is that we're doing kind of a gallery of videos from people with disabilities to hear directly from the territory about, thank you for the ADA, thank you ADA for XYZ. And we've got some great examples of what's been going on in the territory that people with disabilities have been positively affected and highlighted in these videos. All of these information, events, programming can be found on our website. Again, we'll follow up with you, but you can go to www.drcvi.org. We have a listing of all the programs we're talking about, where you can register for the upcoming training and so forth, and we'll keep updating it as the month goes on in terms of some new programming for the ADA celebration.
Fantastic. If it's all there on the site, I'll get it off of the site. You know, I just wanted to understand our dilemma from the media side of things is that it's nice when you funnel stuff to us. Otherwise, we'll be all over the place looking for something, and sure enough, we'll miss a particular site that has something. But definitely, WSTX is a community-minded station, and we're interested in getting these type of things out to the community. All right. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and I really am happy for this opportunity to share this with the public. All right. So the floor is yours. If you've covered everything that you want to talk about, I'm sure I could call up Jared and he could give you 50 other things to talk about, but I won't do that to you. Not today, another time.
Let me share this with you. I read this morning. The New York Times has, from time to time had some pretty interesting things. And there was a movement having to do with another federal law, Section 504, which deals with if you are an entity that receives federal funding, it's illegal to discriminate against persons with a disability, and you are a recipient of federal funds. What I hadn't realized, not happy to say, was I did not realize the extent of struggle it took to have that section of the Rehabilitation Act enacted. And one of the people that they featured in today's paper was a gentleman by the name of Brad Lomax, a Black man with a disability. He had multiple sclerosis, and it was the Black Panthers. He was a member of the Black Panthers, and his group, in conjunction with the Black Panthers, was instrumental in seizing the federal government building in San Francisco. There was a sit-in that went on for over a month, and it was the Black Panthers that fed the folks that were in that building saying, we are not leaving until Section 504 is enacted. And so they have a tribute to this man, Brad Lomax, his work and how instrumental his involvement was in keeping the protesters fed so that they could stay together and finally have this particular piece of legislation passed.
And that's
I thought that was very right on.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's so important, because struggle is not necessarily the court, it's not necessarily writing a piece of paper. Sometimes you just have to do a Sonny Barnes on them and just park up in front of the bus. You're not going from here until you deal with the situation. And bringing it home in that sense, because sometimes you think that Queen Mary and the other queens were just a little blip somewhere and we can refer to them. And no. Sometimes it takes activism,
Right.
feet on the ground, to make things happen and get people's attention and say, hey, we've got to do something about this. And heaven knows we have a few things here that qualify so well as that is what's needed. I mean, COVID has thwarted us because we're not able to now get all of our persons with disabilities to sit down, park up or whatever in front of the WAPA doors so they can't open until they address the doors, So in that sense, COVID has thwarted us, but it has not taken away the other opportunities that we have. Yes, thanks for bringing that to our attention. And in the time that we are with all of the protesting that's going on, it's appropriate that people realize it's more than protesting what's happening with terms of the police. And it's so funny. I saw a heart-wrenching situation the other day where this gentleman in a wheelchair was protesting. I mean, they threw him out of his wheelchair, broke his wheelchair, everything else. I mean, it's like, you're in charge. You're in charge. You've forgotten who it is that you serve and why it is that you serve. And in that sense, the need for struggle will always be there. And I think we have some folks here who are up to the challenge. Okay, and in particular, you mentioned in the press release the partners in terms of the I think it's like maybe the second paragraph in your press release. Other organizations that you work with listed, independent living. I would let you talk about your partners.
Well, we have what's called the DD partners in regard to developmental disabilities, and that includes the Developmental Disabilities Council, the Virgin Islands Developmental Disabilities Council, as well as USET, University Center for Excellence on Developmental Disabilities. And then there's our organization, and we also unofficially we partner with the Center for Independent Living. So there's those major organizations who have spinoffs under the umbrella of the Center for Independent Living. They have on both islands a mutual association for self-help that's a cross-disability consumer organization, as well as the VI Deaf and Hard of Hearing Association, which is another group of consumers. They still have, on the parent side, I can't remember the name of the group, Shammi or Amelia, if you could help me.
Family Voices.
Family Voices is one under the umbrella of developmental disabilities, but the autism parent group, parents of children with autism, I think it's called.
Something like that, yeah. I don't recall the exact word here, but it's headed by Chevelle Simeon.
Right. So there's a lot of subgroups that we try to, again, subsume under our umbrella as we advocate as a cross-disability program to assist, like Ms. Evelyn said, this anti-stigma, bring to forward those issues that directly affect them in their persons in their everyday life. Sensitivity training. Now, your ADA coordinator, Mr. Julian Henley, and I have done sensitivity training with Vitran, Vitran Plus over the last 5 years. And that's why it's always interesting to hear that there's still some bus drivers that are having those issues with the customers, which is not unusual. It's a common complaint, but I think it's getting better.
Yes.
We're chipping away.
The challenge in this case goes right into the office, okay? And if you can, in terms of sensitivity training, I would invite you to include people like Gerard. I mean, he can be caustic in this environment, in the sense, I use the word caustic as in, it's like if
right.
Acid and base is gonna foam up, But he's also very talented in terms of a teaching type of environment. I would invite you to invite someone like him to assist you in that effort, because sometimes people just have to see someone who feels it and knows it before it really comes through. And this is just a class and required training, and I got to sit here for an hour.
Right.
There is something real to it in that sense. But the problem goes all the way into the office. In fact, sometimes I would say that there are a lot of drivers who go above and beyond to try and compensate for things. And in that context, I just want to give credit where credit is due, because the folks at Vitran Plus, they have a real challenge. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because the resources relative to the need clearly is not enough. And in that sense, they can do better with what they have. But one of the things I would say, based on my involvement, is that folks are interested in partnering, not in the battle goes. Okay, we have another caller here. Good day, caller.
Yes, it's me again. I am actually a certified ADA trainer, so I would fit into that training.
Did y'all hear that horn blowing?
Yes.
All right. So he's been to our Cornell-sponsored ADA training.
All right.
Yes, I did that.
All righty. Well, good. You're good to go.
All right. Okay. All right, fantastic. All right.
I ain't playing my hand. I just put down my credentials.
Oh,
Hey, I can do this now because you're miles away, okay? Because he has this medical assistive device that sometimes he wants to use as a weapon. So I can talk about him and joke with him if he can't reach me from there. Anyhow,
I can't see you from here.
you can't reach me from there.
I can't see you from here. That's why I see.
Okay, all right. Good
All
thing.
right. I
Okay,
headed back up into the bleachers.
all right. Good thing. Good
All
thing.
right.
All right, fantastic. Well, I'm glad that he called and said that, because hopefully it's an inspiration to others that when we have those type of opportunities that they attend and get the training and be more active in making the VI that they want to live in. All right. It's really been a pleasure. And I want to say that, yes, we're celebrating 30 years, but we can look at it as this year is the 30th year and the doors of WSTX are wide open. And so if we have an opportunity to do anything like this again, just know that it's just a phone call and communication. I want to give a special thanks to Nicole Tyson and the coordination that she did to make it all happen. Yes, Nicole, glad to know you're out there making it happen.
That's right.
All right. So yes, making it happen in the sense of for everybody, because the key is that each one of us has the opportunity to be somebody who's making it happen. All right. So thanks, Nicole. Yeah. So we have the opportunity. We're more than willing to make the time and take advantage of the opportunity. And to the extent that persons like Jared, myself, a couple other names I could call, but I want to protect the innocent. They want to play shy today, but that's fine. So we're here to do our part in that sense, both from the station perspective, clients of Vitran or other persons who have some relative need to the function and purpose of the ADA, and organizations such like the Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands. Okay, get it together there, Doug. And we definitely look forward to a brighter future. It would be nice if it's an easier future. It's less work future to get these things done.
More accessible future. How about a more accessible
A more
future?
accessible future. All right. So hopefully all the folks out there have heard this conversation and they're trembling and saying, okay, we'll do whatever is needed. Just come and tell us what you need and we'll do it. Yeah. But we know it doesn't quite work that way.
right.
All right. So Disability Rights Center of the Virgin Islands, you are right next door. Zoom has you in our office, in our studio, anytime you need.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity.
All right, fantastic. Okay. Well, have a great day and much success. And if there's something that we can do from our end, just pick up the phone, send the email, send the text, and we can rise to the occasion.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, folks. WSTX AM 970, your community-minded station.